gathering that data. So that's extremely useful to my competitor who wants to site a wind farm in the area, right? So, right, there's no substitute for a measured at a site versus what a scientist tells you is going to happen at the site. You actually have measured data at the site, just like an oil and gas operator. The greatest thing that they have is a test well that tells them if they're producing. And once they know they're producing, the value of whatever they hold goes way up in value, right? Because now you know that that natural resource exists. It's the same thing in the wind business. Once you have validated that a site is a good wind site, it's really the thing that you have is of most value. Right? Does that make sense, or you think I'm blowing smoke and mirrors? What do you think?
Well, there's a solar project going on in Smyrna right now, and they say it's a 3 megawatt project. So you really have a pretty good sense, and that has a lot of variables too. So
That's so that's just
Megawatts,
capacity, right? So megawatts is just what it could generate on this, what the maximum output is. And so the maximum output of the hybrid wind farm is 103.5 megawatts. So when we're cranking on a day like today, it'll be producing at full rated capacity. That's not particularly useful for an investor because that just tells you what the think about it as a water pipe. That's the maximum amount of water that could flow through that pipe. But that doesn't tell you how much water on average will flow through that pipe in a year. It just tells you what that maximum throughput is going to be. And that's what the 103 is. Yeah. So same thing. The 3 megawatt doesn't. Yeah, that's what they'll do on a nice July afternoon. Yeah, but the more interesting question is how many megawatt hours are going to produce over the year when you fold in the cloudy days and the winter days.
well, that's kind of what I'm getting at, and it's I'm sure it's difficult to bring investors on board if they don't know what the break even is based on the output.
That's exactly right. So we know we have a very good idea because we've been measuring this site since 2018. We actually have an extremely high confidence idea of what this site is going to produce over the course of 30 years, right? And
Is that public knowledge?
No.
Okay.
No, yeah, proprietary data, right? You made an investment to be able, that makes sense.
So, Mike, were you looking for the rated capacity, as he said, at 103, or were you looking for, the kind of the protected proprietary information of?
Well, just by definition, I can't get that, so.
Yeah. But does the 103.5 help?
Well, if you could just explain that quickly, sorry, then I'm not.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, so 103.5 would be all the machines put together, what they could produce at maximum output.
Okay, then I'm good.
Okay, cool.
Fine.
All right,
I appreciate it.
Once the site's built, does the proprietary portion of that go away? So the reason I ask is because we've been audited a couple times by the comptroller. And one of the notes they've made over both audits is that we're not verifying output of the projects that we're approving for pilots when it comes to solar. So our annual questionnaire now requires that. That's a section on there. So is that the number that you would share once the project's up and running?
We will share it with our landowners on a confidential basis. So I don't see why we couldn't share it with you guys. So
We have to.
Do you guys ask, I'm sorry, because I've looked at some for the Puckett Solar. I can't remember, do we put in the installed capacity on that or the actual output? I thought we put in the for example, the 103.5. I didn't know we put in, that one's a 20 megawatt project. I didn't know they put in the actual capacity.
We asked for that, whether or not we're getting it, as far as the true number
But
is.
the state's requiring us to verify you're doing what you said you were going to do.
And is that because you guys are concerned that we might actually be generating revenue?
No. So we approve a project at a certain output, right?
Yes.
So they want to make sure that you're providing.
Oh, I think
That
so, Robert, we
service.
can absolutely provide like a certification to the IDA of, and because we have to produce this for NYSERDA and for the New York Department of Public Service, we have to produce a final installed capacity number, like the independent engineer has looked at and verified that you have this many megawatts installed at the site. And I think if that would suffice, that would be.
That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, we can definitely do
Yeah.
that. Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Exactly what we're looking
Yeah, and actually, I think it's for, once these projects are implemented, installed, producing power, we have a requirement on an ongoing basis for all of our pilots that we have to report to the.
for. Report to the state.
Yeah, we have to report to the state one of those is how much power do they have? And it's on a per megawatt basis, and
And that, we
It's
can do
either
that, if you guys wanna do that every year, we could do it every year. like-
Yeah, we'll have,
Yeah.
so is a project generating the revenue for the towns and
Yes.
schools that it said it was going to? You approved this pilot, gave them a tax break based upon the revenue projections. Is it doing what it
That
says
makes
it's
perfect
supposed to
sense.
do?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, that is absolutely doable.
We haven't been
have
checking.
We have a number of obligations to other parties to furnish that data, so there's no reason we can't.
sounds good.
You'll get a form from us annually.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's no different than if you said you're gonna hire 100 people.
Yeah.
There's gonna be 100 jobs you're gonna create, and you create 10, right? It's a checks and balance.
That's right.
So-
No, just to clarify my comment, I thought you guys were looking for the annual revenue that we're producing
No,
for ourselves. That's the different thing, yeah.
Any other questions?
thank you, gentlemen.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you so
Do you
much.
want us to stay for after the executive session? Will you have questions for us?
We might,
Yeah.
we might,
Yeah.
because we haven't had it, the board has not had a chance to review the proposals from the attorneys. So if you want to stay, you're more than
Yeah.
welcome. There's an area right over there that you
Yeah,
can.
so Nathan and I have to go to Chautauqua County for a meeting this afternoon, but these guys will be here and they'll stay.
That's great.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Just let them know. Coffee. Put it in that couch, All right, better?
Yep. Ten percent of it went to air, 10% of it went to air. Okay, agenda item 7, annual resolution 2507, looks like a.
We missed this.
Yeah.
We missed this during the annual meeting. It's the signature authority for the IDA, that we missed.
The draft resolution is page 14. Since they sent up the signatories, Sal is chair and Mike Corey is treasurer authorized to sign.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Burton moves.
Wait, it's an MBT account. I'm
Nope,
saying,
Mr.
sorry.
Burton will abstain.
We still have a quorum.
We still have a quorum.
I make a motion.
Mr. Folds moves. Zeno seconds, discussion. Hearing none, we'll vote.
Burton abstain.
Corey, aye.
Hold that.
Woodford, aye, carries.
Before we move on to the next one, I do want you guys to consider RC, and it's okay with you.
No, you're fine.
I'd like us to consider, we have some processes in place now that require 2 signatures. We have some things in place that require, we talked about this at the DCC meeting yesterday, RC. We have regular bills that, require us to chase down signatures. A lot of you guys are busy. Mike, you had to come in. We've had RC have to come in. What Kurt suggested, now that John is here, is that we create a process where we have some automatic payments that are authorized. For instance, the payment from the DCC and the Commerce Schnengo could be automated. We don't need to create a check for those, right? Our annual fee, IDA paying, the monthly fee, $10,000 that we pay each month, every month. It's consistent, it's signed off, it's on a contract. Do we really need to chase 2 signatures for that? Right? It doesn't make sense. So what I'd like to do is have John spend some time to come to all of the boards and say, these are the things we see every single month. They don't change. We'll send out an authorization, say, we paid the normal bills every single month, but approve those in advance. Saves you guys having to do a whole bunch of housekeeping. Plus it'll save us money on paper checks.
Makes sense.
So, okay.
Yeah,
So that
especially
will
if
take
they're-
that.
if they're
You have to say
contractually
me, I don't
authorized.
Okay, we'll pre-approve those bills in advance, we'll get those things set up, makes sense. All right, great. I just wanted to take that before we move on. Now we'll go into the pilot updates and then we'll.
Okay, a couple things here to report. The first one is the Lifelong Agricultural LLC application. This was a new application that we received last month. It is included in your packet. There were a couple questions that came up with this, just on the feasibility of the project and the nature of the project. I did send it over to our attorneys who are still in the process of reviewing it. So there's really not a whole lot to discuss today, just because I would rather collect their information or ideology on it first before presenting it full to the board. Also, there was some information missing in there that I have since collected just on parcel and information on bad taxes, current taxes. So
It's cannabis related.
It's cannabis related. The gentleman is from out west. He does have a license in New York State to do what he's proposing to do. I have talked to the realtor of the property as well. I mean, the gentleman has toured it a couple times. So it is a legit application. I just want to do our due diligence and making sure it's totally feasible before we dive into it.
Brian asked a question about whether or not, because we occasionally get federal grants as associated with some of our projects, whether or not we could take that on. I believe, Brian, the initial is, yes, other places have. Stizzy's going into the ACO plant over there. They're a major distributor, manufacturer of marijuana products. I'm fairly positive they have a pilot with that building over there. So there'll be a problem for us, but we'll find out.
There are other IDAs in New York State that have approved similar projects. So there is a precedent that's been set. So, but like I said, we just want to do our due diligence.
It has been referred to the attorney.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's want to go in with our eyes open.
Yep. Next one, Norbit Solar Farms. Attorneys are still going back and forth on that. They did anticipate on closing this month, but we are hung up on one tiny detail that I think may push that off to May, but hoping to have that resolved here sooner than later. Payne Solar, we talked a little bit about that last month. I did have an update there. They have officially reached an agreement with NYSEG on interconnection costs. That's what they've kind of been waiting for. As I mentioned last meeting, they felt the application costs that they put in there for the construction was higher than what was going to be. So now that they have got their interconnection costs with NYSEG agreed upon, they do need to update those figures. So they are going to resubmit new applications with the accurate figures. I am anticipating having that by the end of this month, so we can review that next month.
You don't have to go through the whole process.
So our attorneys say that it does not need to start from phase one back to the board.
No public hearing.
No public hearing. It would just be passing a new final resolution.
Interesting.
I got a question for you on Payne and Norbit. It's been a while, so just to clarify, have they submitted decommissioning reports
As part of
specific? And
yes.
would a bond be required for them to carry in like the project?
Yes, it's part of our
I
pilot.
knew it was, but it seems
Part of our
like,
UTEP policy.
yeah, I
Like,
didn't know
they
when
have
that
to come
started
in.
and stuff, but okay, it stopped.
And it has an escalator in it over time to make sure that process, right? And we built all those
Yeah.
into our UTEP. It's absolutely part of our application.
Thanks for
process.
reconfirming.
Which was one of the snags with the project.
Right.
They were very generic
Correct.
when it came to their bonding
Very
process.
non-specific.
Very non-specific. Could have been a bunch,
Appreciate
could
it.
have been a million.
Yep.
Principal.
Principal design, attorneys are working together on some closing documents for that, as we just passed that last month. They are anticipating a groundbreaking ceremony in July of 2025, so should move here quickly once we close on the pilot itself, and they'll close on the building, and that project would be underway. So hoping to move things quickly with that.
It's a big deal to be able to have one of our major DRI projects crack ground in the middle of downtown is what we need to try to be a catalyst for some of the other people we'd like to attract there, right? The idea of having 50 hotel rooms in the middle of your downtown would be attractive to other businesses. So it's a big deal.
Okay.
Any questions on any of those?
I just want to make sure, because we're going a little quick, but we have Frank here. Frank, payment in lieu of taxes, that's a pilot. These guys come in and Highbridge Wind, other solars, all these other businesses that could locate these projects in different counties and or potentially different states, come to the IDA board, or they can go to the regional municipality like Smyrna or Bainbridge and ask for basically a tax abatement, mortgage tax, property tax, sales tax. They're eligible for those based upon the revenue that they can create in lieu of the taxes they would pay on full assessed value. So this board has an obligation or responsibility to say, this is a half a loaf is better than none. We're better off having that here in Shenango County, and the impact on our community is positive. Takes that discussion out of elected officials' hands, who are very often subjected to different pressures, right? Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
If you get a few minutes free, go out to our website, and our UTEP policy, which is out there, kind of really describes what factors we look at, and what kind of tax breaks we give in schedules, example schedules out there. It's only like a 3 or 4 page document. It doesn't take long, but it's a nice, quick.
We'll send it to you. UTEC, Universal Tax Exempt Policy, that we've adopted to be similar to other counties in the area, so we have a level playing field.
And we've modified the UTEP a couple of times in recent years.
Probably need to look at it
Probably
again.
need to look at it again.
I agree.
As well as maybe even our mission statement, because there has been some discussion with folks from other IDAs that essentially say, if you're gonna deal with any specific type of project, whether it be wind, solar, whatever, you better have it in your mission statement, because if it's in your mission statement, you can do it.
I agree. It'd be great to have Lou join the board, to have Lou help us with some of these things, right? From the attorney's perspective, it'll save us some money to be able to get some of these things done. So
Okay.
that's it. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we paused on that for a minute.
Whole business, Paris.
Okay, so we submitted the Paris report back at the end of March. Happy to have my first one under my belt. It was a little less painless than I thought it was going to be. But to go back a couple months ago, I brought a kind of a spreadsheet that had all the information that we need to collect from past pilot or current pilot programs. I am in the process of putting that information all together so I can bring that here in May, just so you guys all have eyes on all of that. Just because I know that's kind of been a sore subject for us the last few years. So hoping to have that completed and we can go over that in May. But everything was submitted on time and should be good to go there.
Fantastic.
Public hearing guidelines, we had talked about these we had sent those out last month. I'm not sure if we had talked about if we needed to pass those or approve those, or when you have any thoughts on those after.
I don't know, if we want to adopt them as a policy, then we should vote on them and have them be approved, like a UTEP or anything else, right? So if we want to have them be public hearing policy rather than public hearing guidelines, then I think it should be voted on and we should document it.
Well, on page 30.
It's on page 30 of this packet. It was in last month's packet as well, yes.
Worked on this with attorneys.
And again, we have no public hearing scheduled, so there isn't a rush on this. If we want to push this off and you want to review them again, that's totally fine. I just wanted to keep it on the agenda. That's totally fine.
No problem.
Is that a standard template, kind of a?
That's a
2
boiler,
minutes?
boilerplate from our attorneys, yes.
That's still 80 minutes.
Bainbridge Solar, with 2 minutes is a long time for people to go. But we'll see.
Really?
Yeah, you'll see. I mean, we'll see.
Just one, yeah.
People can submit their written statements too afterwards.
Yeah,
I have more
sure,
discussion,
absolutely.
so.
I get people repeat themselves.
Norwich Meadows Farms, the Earl B. Business Park, we did close on that property on April 8th. So that transaction is completed. We did receive $55,718 back on April 8th for that transaction. Any questions on that?
So we're
done.
out of that.
You're out of it. We're done. All set.
Not that
That was an interesting one.
Not that it matters anymore, but the reason he wanted that was so that he could put in a processing plant, right? Is that still his plan? Does anybody know?
I don't know, honestly.
I don't know. And it's hard to communicate with them, Brian, so I'm just glad it's closed.
Okay, good.
I'm not trying, it's just hard, they're very, you don't hear from them forever, and then it's like you hear from them every 5 minutes, because you gotta hurry up and get it done, and there's some language barriers that it's probably maybe a little deaf on top of that, so it's good that it's closed.
So we're free and clear. Insurance company.
I'll follow up on,
Yeah.
I've got a meeting with them, I've been reviewing all the insurance coverages, I was supposed to have a meeting yesterday, I was gonna tell them of this, but they were sick, so we'll get it back to the effective date of the sale.
Okay.
Full coverage.
We'll get it back to the effective date. Okay. Let's get that refund. Awesome, thanks. Okay.
Yeah, everything legal.
we do have our initial lease with them has expired. So I do have a new lease. I do have copies of it here, and I think we'll wait till executive session to just discuss what the parameters of for that.
It's contract, so we'll discuss it in executive.
Sal,
Visitor economy, you guys know JLL is a group that the DCC has contracted to work on branding the county, figuring out what assets we have, trying to figure out what things we could accentuate more by some development. They'll be here May 12th through the 14th. I'd ask all of you to try to put that on your calendars if you could. Taylor specifically, they would love to be able to tour golden artists. They believe very, very strongly that places like Chobani and golden artists, and even Raymond, Toyota Corporation, can play a role in drawing international and especially golden artists. That event you had Saturday night, Taylor, they believe that could be an event that draws people from all over the country because of the brand affinity associated with golden. So Tyler's going to follow up with you. It's really, truly something that we're looking forward to having a lot of interaction with the different leaders throughout the community. May 12th through the 14th, we'll give you some dates and some specific things that we'll invite you to going forward. Woods Corners update, I don't have one. Chobani, I don't know if those of you that know, Jeff and I were recently invited to, Eric and some others, I think Mr. Chamber was invited to an announcement up in Rome by Chobani about their next step in food movement. So my guess is that they have an announcement about their new plans and just speculation on our part. And that's a good thing if it's in New York State. I wish it was in Shenango County, but I guess it's somewhere in Oneida County, that would be my guess. Once that's behind them, I'm hoping they'll focus on Woods Corners and then again here in the middle of downtown where we think there's some opportunity. Workforce Development Initiative, Sarah Casales has done a great job. She's launched 2 specific cohorts that would allow anybody who takes them to walk out of there with the skill sets necessary to apply for a job at Carey Bio, Unison, Alvagen, Raymond. It's the basics of manufacturing. It teaches some, I think, APIC certification. You walk out of there with the ability to understand a CAD drawing. Unfortunately, to be honest with you, we piloted it with 20 kids from BOCES and only eight of them completed graduation. 3 of them were capable of being hired. It's really a clear indication for me that for this to be impactful like it is in Broome and Onondaga County, we have to focus on adult learning. It has to be focused on, because right now, unless this is being driven by the school systems themselves, where they say this is a program that leads to degrees, there's a lot of talk about this in Norwich and others about being schools of the community and about engaging with those to be able to give skills and trades that are applicable to people immediately when they graduate. But it's not being mandated, so it's not being fully supported. So the fact that we had 20 kids sign up, all of them from BOCES, she's now launched one called Essential Employment Skills. How to write a resume, how to show up for work on time, what it means to handle a credit card appropriately, how to answer the phone, how to construct an email with all capital letters and right punctuation, basic stuff. Miles to Go, Preferred Mutual, NBT, New York Central Mutual, anybody who passes those would get an interview. If we have an opening, we gladly take them versus somebody who hasn't been through that. We can only get 8 kids to take it because it's not being mandated from the school. So Tyler and myself and Sarah, Shane sent us some information from the ARC, the Southern Tier. There's a group led by Jen Gregory. The Appalachian Regional Council has some workforce development grants. We're going to try to go secure that money and try to launch a program specifically aimed at adults. We're going to try to go up to Onondaga County where they have one of these OEC centers, these educational opportunity centers, and try to learn more about it. We're not giving up on it, but trying to do it through the schools has been more challenging than I would have thought.
So the 40% success rate really wasn't the fault of the program. It was the kids
Stopped coming.
Yeah, they just didn't follow.
Kids stopped coming. 8 kids finished. And of those 8 kids, 3 are putting in applications at Unison, and all 8 of them would be capable. So again, Frank has been, this is one of the reasons why Frank's at the table. I'll tell you guys repeatedly, filling our open jobs at our current employers would be a major win because that would create demand everywhere. Trying to figure out the next steps after that is where would they live, so on and so forth. But if we could fill the hundreds of jobs that are open, that'd be the kind of catalyst we need. So a skilled and trained workforce coming out of Morrisville, because you got another thing you have to think about. That school right now has 300 kids going to it, and to be functioning appropriately, they need 1,000 kids going to there. So you have to think about what's the end game for that if we don't figure out a role for them. So we're going to keep working on that. Housing, Flanagan Field, Shane applied for $1 million infrastructure grant that is available for us if we can figure out a way to create housing. The school has a piece of property at Flanagan Field that they don't know what to do with, 6.5 acres. We believe that it's a perfect site to be able to put senior and low-income housing in there. You guys know the work that Greater Opportunities from Ruben Schnagel did over at Red Mill. I encourage you to go over on the corner of 80 and 8 and took what was a dilapidated piece of property. I think they put up 6 managed units. Is it 6 or 8?
There were 18 of 9 one-bedroom and 9 two-bedrooms, so 18 total housing units.
And if you go by them now, they look just like they did a year ago when they opened them. They're well maintained. There's caseworkers on site to help these people. Hopefully, we can continue to move that forward. We're working with the school board on that right now. Finally, the Norwich Water District. That's something, Stan, I'm hoping Eric Scribner's behind us. RC and I have talked about this. I'm convinced, and we've spoken with the state about this as well, if we truly think we're going to create expansion here in the Norwich area, we're going to have to figure out how to get water east of the river and north of where it is right now on the corner of King Solomon and 12, right? The first step in that is to create a water district. To create a water district between North Norwich, the city of Norwich. We invited Dr. Kwanzaa to come here. Hopefully he will and join us here after this meeting. But it'd be wonderful to think about how do we do that? How do we get that water across there? There's money available through the state for those types of infrastructure. Omar Sanders, the gatekeeper, frankly, for the Department of State, has repeatedly said that would be a project they would love to take on. I believe that makes that Woods Corners plant much more valuable. And there's wells on that property right now that generate more water than the city wells we have currently. So it could be tremendous if we can figure out how to make those part of that water. It makes that whole area much more viable for development, right? So I don't know exactly how to do that, Eric, but I'm willing to figure out how the IDA can take that on between the
You know what Chobani can do that first. What Chobani can do with that property before you go and take the well. I mean,
No, I understand that, but regardless of their wells,
but I mean, that'd
it'd still be great to get
great.
water east and north.
Absolutely.
And I anticipate a point where for Chobani to say the IDA, we had a chance to take that property over 3 years ago, and we didn't know what to do with it. And to maintain those buildings was daunting, right? If somebody's going to give us a level field and say, go ahead, come up with that roadmap we talked about, consultants to say, how should we develop this area? Those wells would be huge to be part of that. But either way, I still think we need to get a water district to get it east of and north of. We're going to have to create that district, right? RC. So I'm only saying, Stan, could we concur? We're not going to take any action to create a water district. Right? We're not going to take any physical action. Right? We don't have to incur a lot of expenses. And I'm willing to figure out how the IDA could proctor that, could figure out a way to be the person that would help mediate that between the 3 entities to do it equitably, fair, right? Like that's all we're trying to do. Not trying to create opportunity for the towns and trying to say, really, can the city handle it? Can the city handle it? You got a new person for DBW now, so you know him, right? At least somebody you know you can work with and you would work on it. You would love to take it on. I just don't know what the next steps are to try to move it.
I was just saying, because water is on the corner already.
It's right on the
Water,
corner.
on the other side of the bridge, so that's a huge savings. You're not gonna bring water under the bridge via the wells.
Oh, you think about get the wells first?
You know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
You push
Okay.
that down the Beck River Road.
I get you. That's smart.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But step one still is.
So
water
It's really.
That makes sense.
It creates an entity, it's really, it's an entity on paper.
Sure.
Don't even have to put a backhoe bucket in the ground to create one, but, it's a great place to start. And then the details, bridge crossings, those kind of things, I mean, they can flush out as time goes on. But again, the extension west down to 32 as well as north to the airport, and even years ago, there was some interest in the town of North Norwich, the hamlet of North Norwich proper. The wells there are typically either they're 12 feet deep or they're 350 feet deep. That's kind of the way they are.
So, and as we think about the work that Shane and his team are trying to do, create shovel-ready properties, right? We're trying to figure out having water in more places will be able to allow us to create more shovel-ready properties, right? That's the key. So, and as you think about the work with Acadia Energy, trying to create a solar field and directly powering people, right? Having sewer power and water to be able to take to these sites would be key.
And, I mean, you can point at a perfect example is the Irby Clark Park. I mean, we can count that as a failure on the part of the IDA. And really, part of the reason that failed was because of lack of infrastructure.
No resources therefore. It's not shovel ready. People can't move right in, build a building.
If there were water, sewer, and natural gas is in the neighborhoods.
At least 4 projects in my tenure.
Exactly, there would be.
I believe that airport's much more developable as well.
Mhm.
And I think those properties across the street from, that were going to be developed in those estates up there, whatever that's called up there by where Dr. May's office was up there, right? That was all going to be housing projects, right? Now, you connect into sewer, I believe all those, you've got property that's no longer in a flood zone, that could be developed, so.
And it was planned as a business park in your town behind Pet Street.
Can we try to figure out a way to get,
RTG, what it looked like.
what would be the path forward to try to do that?
But I think it's a good place to start. And again, I've said it many times before, it's a drum I started beating 35 years ago. And really, it never really did get any traction, but I think maybe now's a good time.
I think you have people in different roles now.
Yeah, that needs to start talking about the extension of the water district.
Yep.
About that.
Who should I get together, Stan? You, RC, Dr. Wanzer,
Yep, there.
Eric? Anybody else we should include? Shane? I want to include Shane,
Yep, Shane would be wise.
and anybody else?
Can't think of anybody, anyone from the city that Eric would be.
Maybe Tim Miller.
Tim Miller.
Just to-
Yeah.
get
Good one. Okay, we'll do that right after, everybody gets back from the spring break. Everybody's running out next week, so when we'll put that on the calendar, and I'll speak to Timmy next week. I'm here next week. What's that?
I was.
No, not.
Anybody, if you think of somebody, we'll send the invites out.
Let you
You
know.
let me know. Okay, thank you for that.
Next quick question, Sal, with your interaction with Giovanni, especially when they were looking for a site, they were actually actively pursuing a new location. Did they ever address the water issue with you in Woods Corner?
No, they actually, and Shane accompanied their site. They had a guy come in right from Chicago, a guy who works specifically on site, appropriate site acquisition. Can't remember what his exact title was, but he came here in Woods Corners. They couldn't go up because of the airport, and they couldn't build around because of the flood zone. So there was no even conversations about what to do next with those wells. It was examining it from the standpoint of, could they build it? Then they looked actually, I think, at the airport and some other sites confidentially probably. He can't say anything, but I wasn't with him, so I can speculate. I know we sent up some sites in Sherburne that we suggested they take a look at, but it never got off the ground. And again, I'm not trying to, I believe, I said this to Tyler yesterday, I believe that they had an idea of where they wanted to be when they called us all in for that meeting, Jeff, over a year ago. I believe they have representatives at the state level. Jordan can speak to this. They have an ESD person like this Omar Sanders that I talk about in their headquarters. Like they have somebody that's specific to Giovanni. So, I'm running around trying to find all these sites, and they've got somebody that's sitting right there at the Department of State saying, I'll help you find a site.
No, I was more interested if there are other factors beyond infrastructure that maybe Woods Corner is not as probable.
No, the building, the reason that they told me they felt that site wasn't sold or developed was because of the multiple buildings tying into one power source, and it was the buildings themselves that were precluding it from being sold. That's what they think. So
Yeah, but I think that's probably pretty accurate.
nobody wants it all, and they can't chop it up.
Oh, it's
It's the same thing we ran into the Centronics building up at the airport. We had people come to us that either wanted manufacturing and no office, they wanted office and no manufacturing. But it just, because of the way it was broke off, you had to find the perfect thing. And got broke up here, otherwise we probably still own it.
Okay, moving along, I entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Make a motion to go into executive session to talk about contracts and expect not to take any action.
Correct. We do not expect to take any
I'll
action.
second.
Hold seconds. Vote.
Oh, we're not.
Does he know I?
Full time.
I'm trained. I don't know.
I don't like.
Do you wanna make an adjournment too, to end executive session?
Yes.
Is that how you do it? Okay.
Well, usually we come out in the kitchen.
Okay, let me know when you come out.
Frank, you're more than welcome to stay for.
End of the
executive
stream
session.
here.
Yeah.
Frank, you're more than
That's
welcome to
gonna-
stay for executive session.